who was the first person that ever came face to face with Jesus on this planet in human history? I don't know who the first person was in human history to meet Jesus. It could have been Adam. It could have possibly been Abraham. Perhaps it was Moses. I'm not sure. The reason I'm not sure is that because there is an aura of mystery about some strange encounters that are recorded for us in the Old Testament that are very difficult for scholars to get a handle on. Old Testament scholars, as well as New Testament scholars, are interested in what can be called Christophanies, which refer to a pre-incarnation appearance of the second person of the Trinity in human history prior to the birth of Christ in Bethlehem. Now, we know that there are such Christophanies. For example, in the famous episode recorded for us by Isaiah in the 6th chapter of Isaiah, when he sees the Lord high and lifted up and seated upon the throne, the New Testament says unambiguously that what Isaiah saw was Christ seated upon the throne, the second person of the Trinity, prior to his descending into this world and living among us as an incarnate human being. So it shouldn't surprise us that there are other occasions in the Old Testament, perhaps, when Christ, as the second person of the Trinity, made a cameo appearance. There's great mystery, for example, that attends the person of Melchizedek in the Old Testament, who is called by the name Melchizedek, or Melchizedek, which means King of Righteousness. And he is described as the King of Salem, or the King of Peace. His name and his title, King of Righteousness, King of Peace, sounds very much like the titles that are ascribed to Christ in the New Testament. We are told of Melchizedek that he had no parents, no father or mother. Now that simply may mean that there was no record of his genealogy and that this was an ordinary earthly king or priest. But it's very strange that so much dignity is ascribed to this person that Abraham himself subordinates himself to Melchizedek, and in the New Testament, Christ's priesthood is called after the order of Melchizedek, and there are scholars who believe that in that encounter that Abraham was meeting the pre-incarnate Christ. I don't know. But there is another such episode of a person who came face to face with Christ that I do believe is clearly a Christophany. And that takes place in the 5th chapter of the book of Joshua. But before I look at that passage, I want to jump ahead to the beginning of the 6th chapter of Joshua, where we read these words. Now Jericho was securely shut up because of the children of Israel. None went out, none came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, See, I have given Jericho into your hand, its king and the mighty men of valor. You shall march around the city, all you men of war. You shall go all around the city once. Do it for 6 days, and 7 priests shall bear 7 trumpets of ram's horn. You know the rest of the story. God commands Joshua to lead a siege against the stronghold, this fortress city that guarded the promised land of Canaan, the city of Jericho. Well, to understand what happened in Jericho, we have to flip back even earlier than the 5th chapter. We have to go to the 1st chapter of Joshua's book, where God speaks to Joshua in the very beginning of the book of Joshua, in the 1st verse. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spoke to Joshua, the son of Nun, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now, therefore, arise, go over this Jordan, you and all this people, to the land which I am giving to them, the children of Israel. And every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given you, as I said to Moses. From the wilderness and this Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, the great sea, toward the going down of the sun, shall be your territory. Now listen to this. No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you nor forsake you. Be strong and of good courage, for to this people you shall divide as an inheritance the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous. This call, this commission, this divine mission that is handed now to Joshua requires strength, and it requires courage. And so God assures his servant at the beginning, when this awesome responsibility is transferred from Moses over to Joshua, God said, Joshua, every place where you put your foot, I will give to you. And I will be with you, and I will not forsake you. And here's the key, no man shall be able to stand against you. What a promise. Now keep that promise in front of you as we now turn our attention to the events that are recorded in the 5th chapter, beginning at the 13th verse of Joshua's book. And it came to pass, when Joshua was by Jericho, that he lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, a man stood opposite him, with his sword drawn in his hand. Now let's try to get in the skin of Joshua for a moment. Joshua has to go up against the toughest fortress that he will have faced up to this point in his life. The reputation of the warriors of Jericho is such that they were men of valor and of strength. Powerful, powerful soldiers. And now as Joshua is making his plans to lay siege to Jericho, to launch an attack against this fortress, as he's looking over the site, suddenly he sees a man that he's never seen before. And the man has his sword drawn. Now, I don't know what this man looked like. All of a sudden, he sees a soldier he had never seen before in his life. And he can tell just by looking at him that this is a formidable person. He can tell by the way the man holds the sword that he's not a novice with the sword. This is no rank amateur that has just suddenly appeared. But he can't see his name on the program. Where'd this ringer come from? Is this reinforcements that have been sent to help me? Or is this a gunslinger that's been hired by the people of Jericho to help them in the midst of this battle? And all of a sudden, I think Joshua, who still has the words of God ringing in his ears, that I will be with you, I will not forsake you, be strong, be of great courage, no man shall be able to stand against you. I know that Joshua was looking at this guy and thinking, what about this one? This guy looks awfully formidable to me. Joshua's wondering. So Joshua went to him and said to him, are you for us or for our adversaries? He sees this formidable soldier standing in his path, and he goes over to him and he asks him the question that's on his mind. At least I have to give credit to Joshua that he just comes right out and asks the question, because he wants to know, whose side are you on? Whose team are you playing for? Are you on our team, or are you fighting for the people of Jericho? Are you with us or for our adversaries? You hear the answer that the warrior gives. The answer, the first part of the answer, I'll tell you without reading it from the text. The answer to Joshua's question, are you for us or for our adversaries? The answer is no. No. What kind of an answer is that? And this is what is happening here. Joshua asks a question that's an either-or question. There's no neutrality here. Now, so Joshua says, are you for us? Or are you for our adversaries? The answer is no. Why? Look at the rest of the statement. No. But as captain of the Lord of hosts, I have now come. Joshua, I'm not from your army, and I'm not from the armies of Jericho. I'm the captain of the Lord of hosts. I'm the commander of the army of God. Well, doesn't that mean you're on our team? That's what Joshua wants to say, doesn't that mean? But what does he say? He's saying to Joshua, it's not a question of whether I'm with you or with the people of Jericho. But really what the captain of the Lord of hosts is saying to Joshua is, Joshua, I'm your commander-in-chief. And I'm taking over. I'm assuming the leadership of this conquest. This battle is mine, and the question is not, am I for you? The question is, are you for me? Because I'm the captain of the Lord of hosts. An interesting title. A title ascribed to Christ in the New Testament as our archegos, our champion, the one who is the leader of the people of God, the one who is the author and finisher of our salvation, the champion who brings his people into the promised land in the New Testament, goes before the people of God in the Old Testament as he takes command over his namesake. Because the New Testament name Jesus is just another name for Joshua. And Joshua meets the ultimate Joshua here on the plain of Jericho. And he knows now that he's not talking to a soldier from Jericho. And listen to the reaction of Joshua. And so Joshua fell on his face to the earth and worshipped him and said to him, what does my Lord say to his servant? And then the captain of the Lord of hosts said to Joshua, take your sandals off your foot, for the place whereon you are standing is holy. The Holy One of Israel has come. Not in his incarnation, but in a Christophany, the second person of the Trinity, the one who will deliver his people and lead them out of bondage and into the promised land, appears. And we know this is not an angel. The host of heaven are called the angelic army, this army of angels that surround the presence of God. But no angel, not even an archangel, is permitted to be worshipped and will not receive worship from any creature. But when Joshua sees who is standing before him with this sword that is drawn, he falls on his face and he worships him and he calls him Lord. And his worship is accepted by the captain of the Lord of hosts, which means it can't possibly be an angel. It can only be the Lord himself, who becomes present for his people to give them courage and strength to conquer the city.